Hello, uh, I'm trying to explain here the code that I've written for the fourth assignment of JavaScript. It's about syllogism. What I've done is I've created a simple function called as isMortal. So what this function does is checks whether the input parameter is of the right type. If the type is wrong, it returns false. Okay, then it has a list of it has an array which tells us the list of people who are mortals. What we do is we just return whether mortal includes the name which is sent as an input parameter or not. So how we use this function is we declare a name called as Socrates. Now we just call the function isMortal with name as a parameter. Now name contains Socrates. Now if Socrates is part of the array, then it's going to print that Socrates is a man, and if it's not present, then we say that the Socrates is not a man. Okay, let's just run it and see what's the output. Socrates is a man. Now what if I give some other name? For example, I say Hades. What about Hades? So if I just clear my output and run, it says Hades is not a man because Hades is not a part of the array that we have defined. Okay, now what if I sent a wrong parameter? For example, what if I send a string at all? Well, if I don't send a string, so I just pass a number over here. So if I say run, it says 1 to 3 is not a man. Ideally I should have written some other error, but to keep it simple I'm just returning it false over here. Okay, so this is more of a static approach which doesn't serve much purpose because I won't be able to reuse this function for any other purpose. What would be better is to make this whole approach entirely dynamic in such a way that I can reuse some of my code for something in the future. Okay, so how do we do it? I would actually prefer creating an object for this purpose. So for example, I create an object called as sect, which has two parameters. The first one is mortality, and second one I would take a list of names who are mortals. So I would just call it as a list. So let's do like this. What can I do is I'll say this dot mortality or is equal to mortality, and they'll say this dot names is equal to list. What I can do, I'll also write a function by the name of for example, for I say const is name present is equal to, it's a function which takes in name as a parameter. Then within this parameter I'll say return names dot includes name. So what I've done here, I just created a small function which returns an object. It also stores two values called as mortality, which can either be true or false. It also contains a list of names which will contain the names that we are going to send. Okay, now how do I use this is the same isMortal function. Instead of creating the mortals, a constant mortals here, I'll just say const mortals is equal to new sect, and I'll say true, comma, Socrates and gay. I'll have just a few names over here. Okay, so these are the set of mortals. I have a new sect. Now I'll say mortals dot is name present of name. What this is going to do, now I have a mortals, which is an object which says that it contains a list of mortals and these are the names, and I'm just checking if the name is present. Then of course my name present will return either true or false, inherently return true or false. If the name is present, it returns true. If the name is not present, it returns false. So my mortals dot is name present will actually check whether the given name is present or not. So let me go back to my previous example. I'll say Socrates. I'll just save it. I'll just clear my console and I'll run. Is not a function. Okay, I made a mistake. This should be this dot is name present. I'll just clear and run it once again. Names is not defined. Okay, let's say this dot names dot includes run. Okay, clear and run it again. It says Socrates is a man. So now I have tried to make it more dynamic in approach. Let us try to make it a little more better. What I can do is, what will happen if I what will happen if I make it a lowercase Socrates. Okay, I'll just clear and run. It says Socrates is not a man. The reason is I'm just sending a static list of names over here without checking its type. Okay, so what I can do is here, before assigning names, I can just say map, and I'll say now I need a function over here which takes a one element, and in return it return men dot to lowercase. Okay. So what this is doing is it will just take the names, convert it to lowercase and keep, and while comparing here I'll just say name dot to lowercase. Fine. Now irrespective of what case I send, it should still function clearly. So let's just check if it runs. It says Socrates is a man. Okay, what if I send something like this, with half of it is uppercase, half of it is lowercase? It will still say Socrates is a man. So my comparison is working properly. One more change which I can do over here is here you can see that I'm sending an array of names. Instead of sending an array, I can also make the list of variables as dynamic over here. So if it is dynamic, then I can just stop sending an array and I can just send a list of names. And since this is dynamic, my list will contain an array of names inherently. So let's just check if it works fine. It still says Socrates is a man, so it's still working. The next change which I'm going to do is change all these functions to fat arrow conventions. So you can see I'm using the older convention over here. So I'll just remove this function names. I'll make it a fat arrow convention. Since there's only a single return statement, I can even remove this brackets or parenthesis. Just open. So I'll just clear and run. Syntax error, that's because okay, I have an extra bracket, so it's not necessary. Okay, so I'll run Socrates is a man. So this is working fine. What if I send a number? Does it work? It says 1, 2, 3 is not a man. Okay, it still works. My logic is still working. I can do the same thing here. Instead of sending a function, I'll declare it as a fat arrow function. I'll remove this so my code becomes shorter and it's much more easier to understand. Okay, fine. So what if I just paste Socrates over here? Okay. Socrates is a man. Okay. So the question is, how does this help in resolving, or how does this object become reusable? So today we have a necessity of creating mortals. What if tomorrow I need an immortal? Okay, so I'll say function. I'll say is is immortal, and I'll send a name. Okay, fine. So here I can do the same thing, but with a slight difference. Instead of my type checking would still be the same. Here say immortals, I'll create a new set with false, and then instead of sending these names, I'll send some other names, say Hades or whatever, God's immortal, or whatever. Just send two names for now. So I'll say immortals dot is name present. Now how do I use this? Is I'll copy the same function. I'll just comment it out. So this name is Hades is immortal of name. Then I say name is immortal is not immortal. Okay, so now if I just clear and run this app, it says Hades is immortal, and if I say Socrates here and I run it, it says Socrates is not immortal. So what we have done is we have created a function or an object which is reusable. This is what we have done in my source code. The same thing applies for the next question that we had, which is about cake. What I've done is I've created an object over here where we say, which takes in flavors and the current flavor as an input parameter. I just store the flavors inside my flavor parameter in the cake object. I also take the list of available flavors, convert them to lowercase, and store it in support flavors. I have a function called as isFlavor, which is a function. It just checks whether this flavor is currently present or not within the list of flavors, and then it returns true or false. I also have another function called as checkCake. What it does is it just checks whether the flavor is correct or wrong, and if the flavor is right, it just returns the flavor, and if the flavor is wrong, it just returns unsupported flavor. Okay, so I've declared an array of flavors called chocolate and vanilla because we only need two flavors right now, and I will declare a cake flavor called as vanilla. I'm creating an object of cake using the new operator, and I'll pass the array and the flavor into the cake, and then I check whether cake.checkCake. So what I get is, if I just clear my console and run, since my current flavor is vanilla, I can see that the current cake is vanilla. If I change this to chocolate and I'll run, you can see the current flavor is chocolate. But if I give a wrong parameter, wrong input, say blueberry, then if I run, it says it's an unsupported flavor. Okay, fine. I'll upload both this source code to Bitbucket, and I'm posting it into Twitter right now. Thank you.